Dear students, today we are going to discuss the topic. It is a story discovering truth. The saga continues. It is written by A.R. Williams. Discovering truth. And the saga continues. It is written by A.R. Williams. So, first of all, if we say discovering truth, what do you mean by truth? Truth actually in ancient Egypt, in कदीम मिस्र में बादशाह जो था उसको तुत कहा जाता था और बाद में जब वो बादशाह बन जाता था, when he became the king, a ruler, and he is known as Pharaoh. So Tutankhamun, actually his name is Tutankhamun. And now the saga actually just like Alif Lela, a story book, a long involved story account or series of incidents. और इसमें सागा जो है ये एक किताब है, या हम कहेंगे कि जिसमें सीरीज ऑफ स्टोरीज लिखी जाती है या लेजेंड्स लिखी जाती है या इसी तरह इंसिडेंट्स लिखी जाती है. तो इसी तरह डिस्कवरिंग ट्रूथ जो है इसमें एक इसने A.R. विलियम्स ने लिखी है इसके बारे में. एंड ही वाज वंस द रूलर ऑफ दिस इजिप्ट एंड ही वाज वेरी यंग रूलर ऑफ इजिप्ट. एंड नाउ द इंट्रोडक्शन. Tut actually Tutankhamun, Pharaoh of ancient Egypt, and Pharaoh is the title of this Tut. So this about the story of this Tutankhamun, he was born in 1370 BC, यानी before Christ पैदा हुआ था और 1352 he died. That means for some time he remained there. And now his tomb was discovered in 1922. It is an introduction of this story. So what is the introduction of this story? That we are going to read about the life history, about the history of this Tut, and how his tomb was discovered after his death. And his actual name was Tutankhamun, and the title was Pharaoh. He was born in 1370 BC and died in 1352 BC. And his tomb was discovered in 1922 by a British archaeologist. His name was Howard Carter. What was his name? Howard Carter. So, the greatest pharaoh of Egypt, he was known as, and discovery of tomb was exciting. Why it was exciting? Because it was the only tomb which was not robbed. ये सिर्फ एक ही उसी का टॉम था जो जिसको कभी चोरी नहीं हुई थी. यानी हर किसी टॉम का वो सोना वोना सब कुछ निकाला गया था, लेकिन ये एक था. एंड टॉम it was a golden throne, caskets, mixture of statues, precious, and then precious tools and furniture. And then in burial chamber where he was buried, where he was जहां उसको दफन किया गया था, there were 4 gold shrines, one inside other, because Pharaoh, and how when he was 9 years old he became the ruler as a child ruler. And then married to the daughter of Pharaoh known as Akhenaten. Akhenaten, and he was also a Pharaoh, and he was worshipping sun god, which is known as Ellen. And after this, married daughter of Pharaoh, and he changed his capital, that was Amarna. And after this, Pharaoh, he also brought he back to his religion, and then he came to the capital Thebes, which was the most Thebes was already their capital, and then ruled about 8 years, not so much. And we are going to read about his discovering his tomb, and how it was discovered, what did they find there in his tomb, and what was the condition of his dead body at that time, and what were the customs and at this time when they buried any pharaoh or any king at that time. Let us read it in our book. So he was just a teenager. He here refers to Tut, or we can say Tutankhamun. When he died. So he was in a teenage when he died. The last here of a powerful family that had ruled Egypt and its empire for centuries, he was told to rest laden with gold and eventually forgotten. So what happened after this? He was the last ruler among these pharaohs. So he says that this tomb, it was laden with the gold when he was buried, but it was forgotten. Nobody discovered him at that time. And after this, since the discovery of his tomb in 1902, as already I have told you that in 1992 his tomb was discovered, and the modern world has speculated about what happened to him, with murder being the most extreme possibility. So this modern world, in the modern age 1922, modern world wants to know about his death, whether he was died naturally or he was murdered. So extremely he was murdered. So what happened after this? Now, leaving his tomb for the first time in almost 80 years, Tut was undergone a CT scan that offers new clues about his life and death. So, after discovering his tomb, that now these archaeologists, they want to do the CT scan of his body. So, after this CT scan, it is a machine where we can see the minute things can be seen there. So, after this, it is para first. After provide precise data of an accurate forensic reconstruction. get help of court or police discovering or proving the crime. Or probing the crime. So what happened when his tomb was discovered in 1922? Now, first of all, they did his CT scan to his body, and after that, they also get help from the court or police for proving his crime. So after this, what happened? An angry wind stirred up ghostly dust devils as King Tut was taken from his resting place in the ancient Egyptian cemetery known as the Valley of the Kings. So when his body was recovered, his body was taken. At that time there was an wind stirred कहते हैं move. There was wind, forceful air was there, and his body was taken from the hand. And where his body was laid at that time, it was in an Egyptian cemetery known as the Valley of the Kings. Valley of the Kings, वहाँ पर उसकी ये body जो थी वो दफन थी, and dark, billowy clouds had secured it across the desert. Secured it across. Clouds covered the whole sky and looked dark. So after this, so the desert sky all day, and now we're viewing the stars in casket gray. In casket gray means in clouds. Casket कहते हैं casket gray, dark clouds. It was 6 p.m. on 5th January of 2005. The world's most famous mummy glided head first into a CT scan, and he says in 2005 his body was taken and it was now on the CT scan, and it was the first his head was glided there. Glided कहते हैं moving. Glided head first into a CT scanner brought here to prove the lingering medical. Lingering कहते हैं long standing. Long standing. ये जो काफी देर से पड़ा हुआ मसला था, lingering medical mysteries means secrets. Medical mysteries of this little understood young ruler who died more than 3,300 years ago. And now in this para you see that his body was brought, it was discovered in 1922. But his body, and it was scanned in 2005, and it was the first when his moving head was put in city second, and he was the first ruler, the very young ruler of Egypt, the very young, the last ruler of the Egypt, known as Pharaoh. And he says that now they want this. This was long standing, whether he was murdered or he had a natural death. All afternoon, the usual line of tourists from around the world had descended into the cramped rock and cut tomb some 26 feet underground to pay their respect. They gazed up the murals on the walls of the burial chamber, and peered at Tutu's glided face, the most striking feature of his mummy-shaped outer coffin. Some visitors read from guided books in a wallpaper. Others stood silently, perhaps pondering Tutu's untimely death in his late teens, or working with a silver if the Pharaoh's goes. Shiver if the Pharaoh's goes death or misfortune falling upon those who disturbed him was recently. So when his body was taken out, so there were so many tourists around it, and some were thinking, some were read these wallpapers and other things, how what kind of a ruler he was, and others was in this mood, or we can say they were thinking about his why he was murdered, and who murdered him, and these things they were thinking about this, and then it was they also think about that it was his curse, that somebody who can make his body death or misfortune falling upon those who disturbed him was recently true. Whether it is true or यानी उसका ये जो उसने ये भी कहा था, उसने एक बद्दुआ कि उन लोगों को जो उसकी बॉडी को डिस्टर्ब करेंगे या उसकी बॉडी को तहस नहस करेंगे तो उन पर कोई आफत आने वाली है. तो ये भी वो कहते थे कि ये सच निकला, क्योंकि जो 1922 में जब जिस एडवर्ड कॉरलिक ने इसकी बॉडी को डिस्कवर किया, तो उस वक्त फिर वो उसके बाद ही मर चुका था. तो इसके बाद the mummy is in very bad condition because of what Carter did in 1922. But now this his dead body, it was very in bad condition, because Carter, what he did at that time, he did when he was discovering this body, and this body was and he says that said Zahi Hassan, Secretary Central of Egypt, the Supreme Council of Antiquities. Antiquities कहते हैं olden times, यानी आसारी कदीमा. As he learned over the body for a long first look, Howard Carter, that is, was the British archaeologist who is 92, discovered Tutu's tomb after years of were surprisingly complete. They remain the richest royal collection ever found and have become part of the Pharaoh's lineage. Stunning artifacts in gold, their eternal brilliance meant to guarantee resurrection, caused a sensation of the time of the discovery and still get the most attention. But Tut was also buried with everyday things he had won in this afterlife: board games, bronze razor, and also the linen undergarments, cases of food and wine. So it was the custom of these people that when he was buried at that time, so everything was put in his grave. that everything day-to-day life's needs, whatever they were put, that every object was put in his grave, that they believe in this, that after life, here he uses resurrection, means after life, and after death, life after death, he will enjoy there with these things. So everything, gold, wealth, everything which a person regularly or in his day-to-day needs, that was put in his graveyard. So after months of carefully recording the Pharaoh's this funerary treasure, these things, funerary treasure means funerary treasure. Models of what? So what happened after this, when the months of carefully recording the Pharaoh's funerary treasures, Carter began investigating his three nested coffins. He was put in three nested coffins, means that they were tied each other. So opening the first, he found a shroud adorned with garlands. When he opened the first coffin, यानी ताबूत जब उसने पहला, तो they were golden coffins, और उसने क्या देखा कि कफन पर मालाएं बिछाई हुई थी of different kinds of willow and olive leaves, wild celery, lotus petals, and cornflowers. And then the faded evidence of the burial in March or April, and they now came to the conclusion that his burial was perhaps in March or April. And after this, when he finally reached the mummy, that means the dead body, what happened? Though he ran into trouble. There he was in a problem. There he ran in a trouble, means he got fixed. What to do now? Why? Because the ritual reasons had hardened. That ritual reasons जो है, it is a substance floated from a tree when it cut. और हम इसको ये भी कहेंगे कि चिकना मादा, यानी एक किस्म का सबस्टेंस होता है, एक किस्म का जो इस लाश पर लगी हुई होती है ताकि लाश खत्म नहीं हो जाएगी, ये डिस्ट्रॉय नहीं हो जाएगी. तो जहां पर ही Carter, when he reached to that this mummy, he ran into the trouble. Why he ran into trouble? Because now it was so hard that he could not break anything to it. So he says he ran into the ritual reason had hardened, cementing tooth to the bottom of his solid gold coffin, and it has cemented him to the bottom of his this, यानी वो बिल्कुल ताबूत की तह पर बिल्कुल चिपका हुआ था कि उसकी लाश अब कोई उठा नहीं सकता था. So what happened? No amount of legitimate force could now move it. Not anybody can move it. Carter wrote later what was to be done. So what was now, he was in a fix what to be done with this mummy. So after this he got this this coffin and put it on the sunlight, and what was loosen the arenas for several hours. He set the mummy outside the blazing sunshine that heated it to 149 degrees of Fahrenheit. Nothing budget, nothing happened after this. He reported with scientific detachment that the consolidated material had to be chiseled away from beneath the limbs and trunk before it was possible to raise the king's remains. So what he that all his main organs were cut down, and then they put also together, but he cut in order to verify, to discover them how he was murdered. Thanks.